Hey folks, welcome to part 5 of my journey along the Bruce Trail, a hike I did in honor of my mom who passed in September of 2019, and also just a trail that helped me navigate my own grief process with that. This footage here is from my last trip. It was a 5-day trek, and I finished Caledon Hills and Dufferin Highland. I headed home on a Saturday night from my last hike and was back up on the Tuesday, setting up at Craigleith Provincial Park, where I then headed out for another 3 days. I was heading into Blue Mountain section, and I was last minute looking for help. That's on me. Trail Angels require about a week, so Blue Mountain did all they could, but they weren't available. But Carl, the gentleman who had given me a ride previously, said he could help me that week. He said he was going up to Collingwood, he could drop me off on the way, and it was no problem. And again, these Trail Angels, just amazing people. So I set up, got my tent all nice, watched the sun go down over the bay. That's the great thing about this park, is spectacular views. And listened to the rain for a bit, but the rain cleared up by the morning, watched the sun rise, and got myself to the start point, met up with Carl, got dropped off on trail, and headed out for another adventure. Alright, doing something entirely different today. Got dropped off by my dude Carl again, and this is where I'll be starting tomorrow. I'm heading in a southerly direction. I'm going south today, and it's going to be buggy, and I got 22.5 kilometers of up and down. Here we go.
Here we go, you and me, we are free to be together in a life we picked. And I know that I'm weird and I'm gassy in the morning, but I'm who you picked, and I say heck yes to whatever the next adventure is.
It has not been an easy day, but I did locate a bench for an afternoon break, which is nice, and the mosquitoes are swarming because everything is overgrown, and they've been on me since I started at freaking before 8 o'clock this morning. But the good news is I brought my trusty bug spray. Bad news is it's out. You can hear me pause there for a moment, and it's because I heard this noise behind me, and when I turned, there was a family of raccoons. They'd come out of a farmer's field behind me and climbed over the fence, and then they headed their way up a tree next to me, and I sat and had a snack, and I watched them, and they watched me, and a great wildlife moment. I say it all the time, and I'll say it again. I love hiking, but one of my favorite parts is sitting and resting and being quiet, because you get a chance to see things like this when you really look inward, you know, whether it's the tiny bugs crawling around or the wildlife that's near you. To me, that's some of the best parts of the trail. You know, the endurance part's great and all, but that's not really my shtick. My shtick is snacks and wildlife, and I love raccoons. Or raccoons, as I lovingly refer to them, but it was great to watch them. They were sort of playing around in the tree, and it was a good moment, and then it quickly changed because I realized I didn't have bug spray, and I still had a lot to do, and storm clouds were looming in. They were coming. I kept checking the radar and thinking, uh-oh, because I had to get to my car. I made it to my car, but I didn't make it out of the storm. In fact, when I reached the roadway with 2 kilometers left, the sky opened up and it dumped upon me. And of course, thunder and lightning and the rest of it. But on my way there, right before I'd reached the road, just as things were really reaching peak humidity and you knew it was coming, I ran into a young lady on trail, and I hadn't seen really anyone for this trip or the last one because of the heat wave, and I think she was just as surprised to see me. She was doing a solo hike as well, planned to finish in September, so we quickly exchanged information on trail contact-wise, because we discussed that, you know, near the end of it in Sydenham and Peninsula, there are no Trail Angels, so we said, you know, if we can help each other out, we will. So we wished each other well. That was not the last time I saw her, but we'll get to that in another time. And and then the storm hit.
Well, I'm soaked because the storm hit when I had 2 kilometers left. And I just ran.
I will tell the story of how I didn't listen to any of my experience and completely just disregarded any storm safety that I've ever known in my life as I ran to my car. I will discuss that another time. What can you do? I give great advice. I don't often take it. It wasn't the worst thing that could happen. I mean, at least I didn't have a hike yet. I got back to my car, got back to my site, dried everything off by the fire, burnt my new socks, of course, but watched the sun go down again, and then after a good night's sleep, it came back up, and I set out for another day on trail. So here I am again, just got dropped off, except today I'm heading north instead of south, but I'm heading south first to head north. So that's where we're going today. That's where we went yesterday. Oh, I got 20 some odd uphill kilometers today, but I know I can do it. This is a lovely trail, but this is not the Bruce Trail. I'm glad after not seeing a couple blazes, I was like, wait a minute. It is easy in Devil's Glen to get lost on ski trails and snowshoe trails and snowmobile trails and everything else. Anyways, back to where I was.
This is magic. Abracadabra. Hocus pocus. Alakazam. Voila!
Oh, he's mad. I scared him and a whole lot of babies just keep flying up to the bushes there and ahead. Sorry, everybody. They're having some sort of family meeting and I interrupted it. This is neat. This is a multi-use trail, but I don't see any snowshoers and I don't see any skiers and I don't see any dogs, but I'm here and I'm hiking, so I'm one of the four. Excellent. Same drill as always. I got back into my car, drove back to my site, enjoyed a campfire, enjoyed the sun going down, and got back up in the morning and kept at it. It is lovely staying at Craigleith, and if you're tenting, you really can get a chance to stay right across from the waters of Lake Huron. So that's my tent just tucked away in there, a couple steps down, and that's why it was so easy to get access to the sun coming up and the sun going down. I've seen a couple of freeze-dried meals happening. Normally I reserve those for backcountry camping. This was just one of those trips that was slightly last minute, so it wasn't really well planned, so it was easy to just grab my reserves and be like, all right, this is what I'm going to be eating. I had a lovely setup there. I checked out that morning, of course. I had one more hike, but I was heading home after, so always fun to get up early, pack up your site, and then head out. That's just a video of me, scoping things out, making sure I picked up all my trash, and I love provincial parks. I will say that sometimes I come to a site and when I come onto the site, there's garbage left behind. I will always clean that up as well as any that I make, but try and keep your site clean. Be finishing here today off a side trail. I'm ready. Well, I had to take a short little jaunt up a side trail, but I had to do it. Had to get to the highest point on the Bruce Trail, and after that climb, I'm feeling it. Craziness, and I just got back to my car, and it's just starting to rain. Thank God I made it in time. Definitely luckier on the last day with the rain than on the first. I made it back, had to drive home in quite a torrential downpour when I discovered that my car needed some new windshield wipers to boot. But I made it back safely. I had a great trip. In total, my 8 days in May and June hiking this section were just full of heat and bugs, and you put fun music to it, and you look back through it, and you're like, oh man, that was the best, and that view and this view. And then when you look closer, you're like, oh, I remember that day. Like, that's the day I got really frustrated. That's the day I did this or that. And actually, on the first day of this trip, I had reached an absolute boiling point the one day. It was a couple hours into the first day on this trip, and I think it's because I started the day hopeful, and after a few hours of slippery rocks and bugs and cobwebs to the face and wet shoes and wet pants from the morning dew, I just lost it. I got swarmed in, the woods by mosquitoes and black flies. I'd get to the road, the deer flies would get me. Anyways, I'd had it, and at one point I just chucked my poles into the woods, screamed an obscenity really loudly, and then thought, I can't do this, sat down, had a break, kept going. By the end of the day, you forget about it. By the end of the trip, you forget about it. And then you're like, I gotta plan another one. I gotta get back on trail. Hiking's the best thing ever. It's the vicious cycle, and it's what keeps you going back. They call it type 2 fun. I call it hiking amnesia. But anyhow, thanks so much for watching. Thank you to the Bruce Trail Angels that gave me rides and everyone who volunteers their time on trail. And as always, stay safe and happy hiking. Okay, so against my better judgment, I'm hiking on a Saturday, and this is the parking situation.